Our presenter today is Dominic Jones, who is Senior Manager of the 180 Degrees Youth Shelter in St. Cloud. I had the pleasure of touring the youth shelter a few weeks ago and visit with Dominic to learn more about their work and their mission. It was really interesting and informative, and this tour is offered periodically for the community, just in case you're interested. For many years, our congregation, through the Social Justice Committee, has supported the local efforts to meet needs of people experiencing homelessness. Today, we will learn about youth experiencing homelessness and how 180 Degrees is working to serve and support them. Thank you for coming today, Dominic. Welcome.
Thank you all. And thank you, Mary, for building that connection, coming out to our facility and seeing the work we do. And I just want to thank all of you guys for allowing me into your space today. Very much appreciated. And I appreciate the work you guys do in our community as well. So I want to start off with a story that's very close to my heart. And many of you have probably heard this story before. There is an elderly man who had his morning routine walking alongside of a beach. And this morning came, and it was just like every other morning, except there was a storm came the night prior. Yet that didn't stop this man from his daily routine, and he set out to walk the beachside as he normally does. And as this man was walking, in the distance, he seen a figure bending down, standing up, bending down, standing up. This man continued on his journey with his walk and got closer. And that figure of bending down and standing up, the man realized it was a young boy. So the man started to think to himself, what is he doing? The man continued, and the closer he got, the man realized what the boy was doing. The boy continued to bend down, stand up, and do a throwing motion. And as that man approached that youth, he asked the little boy, what are you doing? And that little boy responded with, the storm last night washed up all these starfish. And as soon as the sun gets to the height, they will die. The boy bent down, grabbed a starfish, and threw another one back into the ocean. The man replied, there's thousands and thousands of starfish on this beach. You simply can't make a difference. That boy looked at the man in his eyes, looked back down to the ground, bent down, stood up, and threw another starfish back into the ocean. And the man stood there kind of perplexed and made him think. The next time the boy bent down, he was in unison. That man bent down with him. They stood up, and they threw two starfish back into the ocean. Little did they know they had an audience. Before they knew it, there were several people bending down, standing up, and throwing starfish back into the ocean. And that story right there is so important to me for two reasons. It's my daily reminder and motivation to continue doing what I am doing for the youth, because I do know that the little impact I can make will make a change. And it brings me to think about the village that I was fortunate enough to be raised upon, and the village that helped me become the man I am today. And that wasn't just by one person. And now in the field I am, I see that that's quite rare. And a lot of people don't have the village. And so again, that story is a daily reminder to continue serving youth with compassion and knowing you too can make a change. I stand up here recognizing 180 Degrees St. Cloud Youth Shelter, and our mission is to create safe spaces and services that honor each individual's healing journey. And with that mission, we have some pillars. Those pillars consist of being strength-based, trauma-informed, and person-centered. And so being strength-based, a lot of the youth we encounter and serve are going through crisis, going through very traumatic experiences in their life. And sometimes it's so hard for them to think of something in a positive aspect, where I know our youth advocates can help change that perspective. Sometimes we get youth who may have been titled as being manipulative. Well, when they come into our shelter, we see that youth as being able to get their needs met. How can we change that perspective for them? How can we walk with them on their journey? Being person-centered. Now, being centered involves seeing youth, hearing youth that often go unheard and feel like they're invisible. And so here at the shelter, voices are heard, and throughout all the programming, whether it be what's on the menu, what is their education going to be built around this month, giving them that voice to control in many areas of their life where they feel like there is no control and they don't have any. And lastly, trauma-informed. And so trauma-informed, what that means to our shelter in a basic sense is we care about the why way more than we care about the what. In being trauma-informed, we might have an individual that may be going through a hard time and they start cussing and they might be in their room crying and they might be throwing around some things. So that what's apparent. However, the why is almost always the most important question. We asked the why, we figured out that this youth lost both of his parents this day last year. That might explain the reasonings. So that why, if we can figure out that root problem, the what often fixes itself. And so now we have our pillars, but what's our foundation? Our foundation is relationships. Throughout my time at 180, I've been fortunate enough to create many relationships. And I've been fortunate enough to create a relationship with this family that I've served this year. One day, I get a call from Sauk Rapids High School from a teacher. And all she said was, "Dom, I have a youth that needs shelter for the night. He's a good kid. Don't know exactly what's going on, but I know he needs you tonight." And thank God we had a bed available for him. Said, "Bring him on by. We have a bed available for him. He'll be at our shelter." And so this was Monday. The kid comes after school and he shows up. And one of the first things he said is, getting to know them, "My biggest fear is my mom coming to the shelter and taking me away." So we heard him out. I was transparent with that youth to say that I will be having communication with your mother, but I'm allowing you to be in this safe space. And so we let him continue going to his same school. continuing going to his extracurricular activities, made sure he had transportation to those because we know how important those are. And the biggest change was now he was living in a youth shelter. And so how do we knock down some of those barriers for him to seek the help he needs? Throughout that week, I had multiple conversations with both the kid and the mother, letting them know that, we need to talk this out. And so Friday came, and Friday we had planned a sit-down conversation with both the youth and the parent there. So I was a little more nervous for that than I am standing up here. But I had no expectations. I didn't know how this was going to go because 4 days prior, that you've told me his worst fear, and now it's here. We were able to sit down and talk, and yes, we had yelling, yes, we had crying, and it was a range of emotions, but that was fine because they were in a safe place to have those. And they did all the work. I just sat there and gave him a space and gave him an unbiased outlook on things. And so that meeting lasted for roughly over an hour, and they got up and they said, "You know what, Dom, I'm going home." And I was like, wow, that happened a little quick. You sure? Yeah, we're sure, Dom. And so they hugged each other, they were crying. And I told them, don't want it to be rushed. I'm gonna leave this bed open for him if he needs it over the weekend. Sunday, I got a call, and that same family said, "Dom, thank you for holding bed for us, but we no longer need it. Please serve another youth." And so that's a beautiful story, right? However, the youth came back several months later. And so for those of you thinking, oh, that's a sad story, no, that's another success for us. That's another time where a youth felt and a youth knew where they could go be in a safe space and seek helpful services. And in that time, we didn't shame the parent nor the kid on coming back and things, maybe you went too fast and it was unsuccessful. Nope. We stood there and we've been supportive advocates to this family. But we're doing things differently now, or we did things differently. And so at 180 degrees, we're not married to one approach. As long as we're standing on our pillars and our foundation, we're able to be flexible. And is what going to work for you? Meeting the youth that where they're at in life, but also their family. And so when that youth came back, he didn't leave like he left the last time. The youth enrolled in our aftercare, which allowed him to have our support in home or however they sought it to be for up to 90 days after discharging from our facility. And we also put in-home supports, not only for the youth, but for their family as well. And so again, they came back and they left on a different note. That's true success for us. And when we're talking about relationships, we've also had relationships with our local community members as well, which brought another call to me. It was about a 17-year-old girl who was homeless. Now I want to paint a picture of this youth experience in homelessness right here in St. Cloud. This 17-year-old home was 3 slabs of cement built up 7 to 8 feet tall. And the 4th wall was a gate. And inside that gate, there lied 2 dumpsters. In the back of those dumpsters lied that child's bed. This is a real story that happened this year, right in St. Cloud. And so thankful for our partnerships and allowing this youth to have the resources needed. They came into our shelter. And upon talking to this youth, that wasn't the only place she stayed. She stayed in a car. This youth didn't have a license, nor did they have vehicle. This youth also stayed in a hotel. I'm going to remind you that this youth was 17, didn't have a credit card either. So right now you should be wondering, well, how did this youth access these? And the hard truth about it is there is individuals out here exploiting the vulnerable youth. And now that this youth was only trying to worry about how was I going to be covered tonight? Where's my next meal coming from? Am I going to be safe tonight? That's a reality of a youth in our community. And so as we got to grow and learn about this youth, we also discovered that this youth was struggling with substance use. So the only reason I'm bringing this up is there's a stigma around homeless youth that they are homeless because they do drugs. And I'm here to stand up and say that is not the truth, and most oftentimes not the case. These youth are trying to escape their reality that they live in. And I want to stand up here and say, oftentimes, the youth that we're seeing in these types of situations are good youth in bad circumstances, not bad youth. And that leads me to my next one. And this one often chokes me up. This is an individual that inspires me. He is no more than 17 years old himself. And when I look at this individual, I look at a respectful young man. I look at someone who's got a lot of courage. He's quiet, but as soon as someone's getting mistreated or bullied, he's the first one who stands up. He does everything as expected in the shelter with no questions asked. If there's a chore that needs to be done, he's probably already doing it. So many of you are probably thinking, well, why is he in the shelter, Dom? And upon reading about your guys' organization, I was thrilled to see that, you guys don't let diversity affect someone getting love and compassion. Well, this youth came to us because their mother kicked them out due to how they identified. That's it, that's all. It should never happen. And this youth doesn't deserve that. So we were out one day at Perkins. Kids had a great week, rewarding them, and that's their place of choice. He came up to me, he said, Dom, this is the only place that calls me by my preferred pronouns. What he said next is a part that always chokes me up, is he said, you have no idea how much more confidence I have now. I look in the mirror and I'm proud to see who I am. And that's big kudos to our youth advocates making that possible. Allowing that safe space to be for all with no barriers, not letting diversity affect love and compassion. So those are 3 stories, but this happens on the daily. Our staff members are provided mental health services because of so much we see in that vicarious trauma. This isn't just one-off situations and scenarios. This is daily in our community. So I want to shift gears though and talk about a little something more positive and maybe bring some more smiles. at the shelter, we're currently going through a remodel phase, which is much needed. The house hasn't been updated since '39. It was two old farmhouses put together. And so now we're halfway through our remodeling phase. And so at the end of November, we'll actually be getting up to 9 rooms. Right now, we're only serving 6. So at the end of November, we'll be at 9 rooms. And then at February, our capacity will be full blown again at 12 youth, all having their own rooms, which was a huge barrier before. We had 4 singles and 4 double rooms. And so we're acknowledging barriers that keeping kids from accessing services. And how do we knock those down? How do we support the community and the youth? And with our new construction, as Mary said, you can guys come out and take a tour. We have 2 upcoming tours, November 15th at 4 o'clock, and then November 18th at 1 p.m. So that's the 3rd Wednesday and the 3rd Saturday. If you guys want to go onto our website, 180degrees.org, there is a sign up list for you guys on an Eventbrite that you guys can utilize and come out and see the shelter and take a in-depth tour on what the kids get to have in a daily aspect, get to see our programming, and get to see the vision we're creating at 180 degrees. And so with that, we'll be introducing a wellness and therapy room to allow on-site mental health. Right now, we're doing it virtually. Once we get that space, we'll have on-site mental health, providing them the privacy needed. We'll also have a family room. On the other side, we'll have a fitness. And so youth are encouraged to keep up with that, as that definitely impacts mental health. We'll have an education center shortly nearby there as we partner with District 742 to do our school on site for us. Again, knocking down barriers of change. And coming in, we'll have our laundry will be lifted up into a main level. And so now the youth have access to gain and improve their independent living skills by us having the opportunity to teach them how to wash clothes, how to cook, how to change a tire, you know how to tie a tie. Getting all these independent living skills that if we don't have that village around us, we might miss. And so with that, I'll leave you with a few closing remarks. Many people ask, well, how can I help Dom? More than money, more than clothing donations, food donations. My biggest ask is always to tell your friends, to tell your families, to tell your neighbors about who 180 Degrees is, what we do, and how we do it. So I just want to say, thank you guys for allowing me in the space again. I will be here to answer questions after. The youth are our future, and no youth deserves to be homeless. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic. We will end the recording now. And we have some time for response and dialogue. We'll just start with comments and questions from people attending